Usually starts with something really small.
Right, like your morning coffee.
Exactly. You're standing at your usual spot, ordering your daily breakfast or maybe grabbing a bubble tea on your way to work, and you notice the total on screen is just, a little bit higher.
Yeah.
You tap your card, grab your drink, and kind of just brush it off. But then, then it's the end of the month.
That's when it hits you.
Yeah, you're looking at your rent, your utility bills, or, I don't know, a flight you want to book, and you suddenly realize how much heavier those numbers feel compared to a year ago. It's the same apartment, the same breakfast, the same tea, but somehow living your exact same life is taking more out of you.
It's a super universal experience right now, and it's one that often leaves people feeling, honestly, pretty helpless.
Totally.
And it really all comes down to a word we hear constantly in the news, but rarely see unpacked in a way that actually explains what it means for the money sitting in your bank account, which is inflation.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive.
We've got a really brilliant stack of notes to go through today.
Oh, yeah. Great material.
They don't just explain the dry mechanics of why a carton of eggs suddenly costs a premium. They actually reveal how this invisible economic pressure is fundamentally altering human behavior.
Right. It's changing the way we plan our lives.
Exactly. But before we get into the heavy macroeconomic labors, I just have to ask, is it just my imagination? Or does inflation feel incredibly personal?
Oh,
like an invisible hand taking a little extra from your pocket every single time you tap your card.
No, it completely is personal because it directly targets the fundamental resources you need to survive.
Right.
And our mission today is to demystify the why and the how behind those rising prices so that invisible hand doesn't feel quite so mysterious.
Which I think we all need right now.
Definitely. We're going to break down the actual mechanics of the economy, look at a really revealing case study of how this is shifting financial behavior in Taiwan.
Which is fascinating, by the way. It really is. And then we're going to do something highly practical. We're going to arm you, the listener, with the exact English vocabulary you need so you can confidently discuss these concepts in the real world.
Yeah, whether you are sitting down with a financial advisor or, walking into your manager's office to negotiate a raise.
Exactly.
So let's start right at the ground level. The simplest definition of inflation we have from our notes is a general increase in prices over time, which means your money has less purchasing power.
Right.
To put it in painfully relatable terms, imagine a bowl of beef noodles.
Oh, a perfect example.
Say it cost $80 3 years ago. You walk into that same shop today, and that exact same bowl of noodles costs $100.
And the crucial thing to understand there is that the bowl of noodles hasn't changed.
Not at all.
Right? The chef isn't giving you more beef, the broth is the same, the portion size is completely identical. What has fundamentally changed is the value of the currency you are handing over the counter.
So your money just does less.
Exactly. When inflation rises, your money simply buys less than it did yesterday.
And this erosion of value hits us in what our notes describe as the 4 major pillars of daily life. The first one is obvious, right? Groceries and food.
Oh, yeah. It's the supermarket shock.
Right, you're walking down the produce aisle, and suddenly basic vegetables are noticeably more expensive. Imported goods take a massive jump. Even just the idea of eating out at a restaurant starts to shift from a standard weekly convenience to, like, a luxury.
And the reason that grocery bill is so high isn't just because the farmer decided to charge more. It's deeply connected to the second and third pillars, which are transportation and fuel.
Oh, right.
Because if global gas prices hike up, it costs more to put diesel in the truck that drives the vegetables from the farm to your local supermarket.
Which ripples out to absolutely everything. It's not just car owners paying more at the pump. Your food delivery app fees go up. Public transit systems have to adjust their fares. Even your late-night online shopping habit gets way more expensive because the logistics, the literal cost of moving a cardboard box from a warehouse to your front porch have skyrocketed.
Which brings a crushing weight onto the next pillar, which is housing.
Ugh, the worst one.
For most people, housing is their largest single monthly expense. When rent increases to keep up with the broader market, it creates an immense amount of localized financial pressure.
Especially for younger workers.
Exactly. They're looking at their spreadsheets and realizing the math simply doesn't work anymore.
And that broken math leads us directly into the fourth and honestly most anxiety-inducing pillar, salary versus the cost of living.
The big one.
Yeah. If your rent, your groceries, and your commute are all going up, but your paycheck is staying exactly the same, your real income is actually shrinking.
It is.
It honestly reminds me of being on a treadmill where someone else controls the dial.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Like you are running at the exact same pace as your fixed salary, you're putting in the same hours, doing the same work.
Yeah.
But the treadmill just keeps speeding up because of those rising costs all around you.
Yeah.
And you are getting completely exhausted just trying not to fall off.
That treadmill analogy perfectly captures the exhaustion people feel, and that exhaustion forces some very uncomfortable conversations at kitchen tables everywhere.
Like what?
Well, people who never thought about side hustles are suddenly, looking for weekend income. Employees who hate confrontation are forced to script out requests for raises.
Right.
The treadmill is speeding up, and everyday people are just scrambling to find a way to keep pace.
So if we are the ones sweating on the treadmill, we really have to ask, who is turning the dial?
Fair question.
Let's peek under the hood of the mechanics of this. Why does everything suddenly get more expensive all at once?
So the mechanics usually boil down to a few core triggers. First, you have higher production costs. Let's say a drought ruins a major wheat harvest. Wheat becomes scarce, so the cost of flour goes up. The bakery has to pay more for flour, so they pass that cost directly to you, the consumer, by raising the price of a loaf of bread.
Okay, so that's raw materials. But we also hear a lot about supply chain disruptions. Like when a massive cargo ship gets stuck in a canal, right?
Yes, exactly.
And suddenly a month later, you can't buy a bicycle or a computer monitor without paying a huge premium.
Because scarcity drives up value. If there are 1,000 people who want to buy a new laptop, but because of a shipping delay, there are only 100 laptops available in the country, the retailers can and will raise the price.
Wow.
That's what we call demand pull inflation. It's when you have too much money chasing too few goods.
Right.
Sometimes this happens gradually, but following major global events, it can spike incredibly quickly.
And when it spikes, the central banks step in. Our notes mention that one of the primary weapons central banks use to fight inflation is raising interest rates.
Yes, that's their main tool.
But let's break that down for the listener. How does making my credit card or my mortgage more expensive actually fix the price of my groceries?
It's a great question because it totally feels counterintuitive.
It really does.
Think of the economy like a massive engine. When inflation is high, the engine is running too hot. Everyone is borrowing money to buy houses, expand businesses, purchase goods.
Okay.
So to cool the engine down, the central bank raises interest rates. Suddenly, borrowing money becomes much more expensive.
Oh, I see. So a family decides to hold off on buying that new car because the auto loan rate is just too high.
Precisely. And a business decides to delay building a new factory because the commercial loan is too expensive.
Right.
This massive drop in spending across the entire country cools down the overall demand for goods and services. And when demand drops, prices stop climbing. Retailers have to stabilize or even lower their prices to attract the fewer people who are actually still spending.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like intentionally throwing a bucket of ice water on the economy to get people to, chill out on their spending.
Exactly.
But our notes also state something that I really have to push back on.
Oh.
Yeah, the research claims that moderate inflation is considered normal in a healthy economy.
Yes, that is a foundational principle in macroeconomics.
Wait, hold on. I have to advocate for anyone listening who is stressing over their budget right now. If moderate inflation is healthy, isn't that a massive paradox?
It definitely sounds like one.
I mean, how can something that causes families so much daily economic pressure, something that forces you to run faster on that treadmill just to stay in place, be considered a sign of economic health?
It absolutely feels like a paradox on an individual level. I totally get that. But to understand why economists want moderate predictable inflation, which is usually around 2%, you have to look at the terrifying alternative.
Which is?
The alternative is deflation, where prices are actually falling over time.
Which, I'm not gonna lie, sounds amazing for my grocery bill and my rent.
I know, it sounds amazing until you look at the psychological mechanism of deflation. Imagine you want to buy a new car, and it costs $30,000 today.
Okay.
But you know for a fact that because of deflation, that exact same car will only cost $25,000 next year. What do?
I wait a year. I'd be crazy to buy it now.
Exactly. Now imagine everyone in the country makes that exact same calculation for cars, appliances, houses, technology.
Oh, wow.
Right. Everyone stops spending and starts hoarding their money, waiting for lower prices. Because nobody is buying anything, businesses see their revenue completely collapse.
So they panic.
Yes, to survive, they freeze hiring. Then they cut wages. Then they start massive layoffs.
Oh, so things are cheaper, but nobody has a job or a paycheck to actually buy them.
Exactly the problem. A healthy economy needs a little bit of inflation to act as a gentle prod. It encourages you to spend and invest your money today because you know it will buy slightly less tomorrow.
That makes sense.
That keeps money moving, businesses growing, and people employed. But as you pointed out, it is a very delicate balancing act. When inflation runs too hot, the everyday consumer pays a brutal price.
Which brings us to how everyday consumers actually adapt to that brutal price. Central banks are pulling these massive macroeconomic levers in the background, but we are the ones who have to survive the reality on the ground.
Very true.
Our notes include a really revealing case study on how Taiwan reacts to a shrinking dollar. It shows how inflation literally rewires human psychology and changes how an entire culture interacts with its money.
Yeah, what is so revealing about the situation in Taiwan is the cultural pivot. Historically, many Asian cultures, including Taiwan, have placed a massive emphasis on saving.
Right.
The ultimate financial goal was to earn money, put it safely in a bank account, and watch the balance grow. It was considered the responsible, conservative way to build wealth.
But inflation completely breaks the math on that old school rule. If Taiwan's inflation rate hits, say, 3%, but your traditional bank savings account is only paying you 1% in interest, your money isn't growing. You are mathematically losing 2% of your wealth's purchasing power every single year.
You are actively moving backward. And the Taiwanese public is highly financially literate. They look at those numbers and realize that keeping money in a traditional savings account during high inflation is deeply, deeply risky.
It's like leaving an ice cube on the kitchen counter.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You might think it's safe because you put it there and you haven't touched it. But because the macroeconomic environment around it is running so hot, it's guaranteed to slowly, silently melt away into nothing.
That is the exact realization sweeping through the population. So the mindset shifts from saving to protecting.
Interesting.
You see a massive movement of capital out of traditional bank deposits. Everyday people, from young professionals to retirees, are actively turning to the stock market, specifically pouring money into monthly dividend ETFs, real estate, and foreign currency assets. They are desperately looking for vehicles that will yield a return higher than the rate of inflation.
It's a complete behavioral shift. The research points out this incredible hunt for passive income. Because inflation increases underlying financial anxiety, people are trying to alleviate that pressure by creating multiple streams of revenue.
Right.
They aren't just relying on their salaries anymore. They are chasing dividend yields so that their money works to offset the rising cost of the groceries.
Which forces a radical kind of long-term thinking. Inflation doesn't just raise the price of your bubble tea, it demands that you think about your money in decades, not just months.
Yeah.
People are heavily focused on asset allocation and risk management. It literally transforms a population of passive savers into a population of active investors.
And making that mental leap from a passive saver to an active investor requires a lot of confidence.
It really does.
And to build that confidence, to navigate bank meetings or, to advocate for yourself at work, you need the right vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to our mission for the final segment of this deep dive. We're going to do an interactive English vocabulary session based directly on our source material, so you can naturally wield these terms in the real world.
Because knowledge is only powerful when you can articulate it. Understanding these concepts allows you to read financial news without feeling overwhelmed, or to sit down and restructure your household spending with clarity.
Right.
Let's walk through the essential terminology.
Let's do it as a practice run. Let's say I'm walking into my manager's office tomorrow. I need to explain why my salary isn't cutting it anymore, but I don't want to just sound like I'm whining about the price of my rent.
Right, you want to sound professional.
Exactly. I want to sound like a financial insider.
Right.
What is the first term I need to establish the baseline?
You start by identifying the macroeconomic environment. Use the term inflation. Remember, this is the general increase in prices over time.
Okay.
In a professional context, you might say, the current rate of inflation is significantly impacting our daily expenses.
Okay, so inflation is the backdrop. But how do I make it about my specific paycheck? This leads to the term wage or salary, which is the money earned from work. But I need to connect the two.
That is where you bring in the concept of cost of living. This is the actual amount of money needed to maintain your standard daily life.
Got it.
You could explain to your manager, While my salary has remained fixed, the cost of living has increased sharply over the last 2 years.
Got it. And to back that up, I need to point to my expenses. An expense is simply the money spent on something specific. I could say basic expenses like housing and transportation are taking up a much larger percentage of my income.
Perfect. When your fixed salary collides with rising expenses, you get what we call economic pressure.
Economic pressure, okay.
This is the overarching financial stress caused by the environment. It's a great professional term. Instead of saying, I'm stressed about money, you say, families are facing unprecedented economic pressure right now.
Oh, I like that. It sounds much more objective. Now, what if I'm at the bank? Let's say I'm moving my money around like the folks in Taiwan, and I want to explain why I'm pulling cash out of my savings.
Okay.
I need to talk about my budget, which is my spending plan, but more importantly, I need to bring up the interest rate.
Yes. The interest rate is the percentage earned on your savings or paid on a loan. You would tell your banker, the current bank interest rates are too low to keep up with inflation, which means my savings aren't growing.
And because my savings aren't growing, I need to focus on long-term planning. I'm preparing financially for the future, which means I have to invest.
Exactly. Let's see how this flows in a real conversation. If we look at the sample dialogue from our notes, it models this perfectly.
Okay.
I might ask you, why does everything feel so much more expensive lately?
And I would answer, it's inflation. The cost of living has gone up everywhere, and wages just aren't keeping pace.
So how are people handling that economic pressure?
They're adjusting their budgets, but more importantly, they are doing long-term planning. They start investing to protect their purchasing power.
Notice how natural that sounds? It identifies the problem, the symptom, and the behavioral solution without sounding like a textbook.
I noticed you emphasized that last phrase. If the listener only remembers one of these terms we just went over, like the absolute ultimate power word to use in any financial conversation, what is it?
Oh, it undeniably has to be purchasing power.
Why that one over inflation?
Because if you only talk about inflation, you are just observing a problem. But when you talk about your purchasing power, the actual amount of goods and services your money can buy you are identifying the true measure of your wealth.
That makes total sense.
Right. Having $100 in a bank account doesn't matter. What matters is what that $100 can actually acquire in the real world. Protecting your purchasing power is the ultimate goal of all investing, and using that term shows you truly understand how money works.
So let's tie this all together. What does this mean for you, the listener, tomorrow morning when you go to buy that breakfast or pay that utility bill?
It means that you can look at those numbers with a new lens. Inflation isn't just an abstract headline. It is a living, breathing force that changes how we plan our lives.
Yeah.
As we saw with the massive cultural shift in Taiwan, it forces us to evolve from passive savers watching our ice cubes melt into active investors who manage risk and seek out assets.
So the next time your rent goes up or your favorite bubble tea costs a little bit more, you aren't just a passive consumer caught by surprise. You now possess the vocabulary to articulate exactly what is happening and the conceptual framework to understand who is turning the dial on the treadmill.
But this raises one final critical question that I want to leave you to mull over.
Oh, lay it on us.
We established that inflation actively forces people to abandon traditional savings accounts and instead buy up assets like real estate or dividend ETFs just to survive.
Right.
But consider the mechanics of that. Does inflation secretly accelerate wealth inequality? Because those who don't have enough spare cash to invest in the first place are left holding those melting ice cubes, while those with capital use their investments to build financial fortresses that rise in value right alongside inflation.
That is a heavy question to consider next time you tap your card. Keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you on the next Deep Dive.